So we're going to head and start this video again. It turns out I just recommend going to YouTube and watching it, pausing the video and watching the video that's already on YouTube. Clearly the compression software we use and the audio is definitely not as good as you can see on the actual YouTube video. So I definitely recommend going there and watching the video there. But just for the sake of being sort of complete, we'll go ahead and continue here.
Back at the shop, it is 6 o'clock. The 4 mock-ups are ready for showing.
Baskets also can be, if you think you will have more volume, baskets can be put in.
A modular shopping cart you pile hand baskets onto. A high-tech cart that gets you through the traffic jam at checkout.
You could mount a scanner on the shopping cart so that you as the customer, as you pull it off the shelf, would scan each item.
One that's built around child safety. And another that lets talk to the supermarket staff remotely.
Yeah, where can I find the yogurt?
But the adults, again, decide more work needs to be done before the mock-ups can be combined into one last prototype.
Why don't we have all the carts come up here for a second? I think you take a piece of each one of these ideas and kind of back it off a little bit and then put it in the design.
The design is still not there, but there's another motto at IDEO: fail often in order to succeed sooner. And some of the team will be up half the night trying to put together a design that finally does work.
There it is! So we took the best elements out of each prototype.
The cart, which is designed to cost about the same as today's carts, is different in every other way. What do you think?
Well, I'm very proud of the team. I think it's great.
Does this work for you?
Works for me great. It's also beautiful.
The cart's wheels turn 90 degrees so it can move sideways. No more lifting up the rear in a tight spot. And you shop in a totally different way. The bags are hung on hooks on the cart's frame. Remember, there is no basket here.
At first, I was a little shocked, but I think you have some fantastic ideas here. It needs a little refining, but I think that it's great. I mean, we would want them.
She also gave us some really good comments on how we can make this thing better.
A lot of hours. Also, an open mind, a boss who demands fresh ideas be quirky and clash with his, a belief that chaos can be constructive, and teamwork, a great deal of teamwork. And these are the recipe for how innovation takes place. This is Jack Smith for Nightline, Palo Alto, California.
So also be careful with the translations that Google suggests in some of their closed captioning. Nothing about massacres was talked about in that particular video, but anyhow, that's what it said. So here we are. We're back at our slides. So as you can see, IDEO's process was done in a week, right? They had a shopping cart. They figured out what was the pain points for shoppers. They tried to figure out what are the issues. So they figured out that theft was a pain point for the store managers. So theft, and they figured out that safety were pain points, right? So if you think of some of these things, like, okay, well, how can we turn these two pains into a new solution? Which, as you could tell, they had the cart with there was no basket, right? Or there was really no main wire basket. You end up taking your bags and hanging them on hooks, right? So it's useless to anybody that wants to steal it if they don't have any of the access to the actual mini baskets or whatever bags on hooks, right? And then they made a new sort of cart that had like a, I don't know if they show it in this video. There's other videos of this. There's like a cart that has a pivot here, right? And this kind of folds down and stays on the other half of the cart that they made. I don't know. I can't really draw it very well, but anyway, and that folds down and then locks in the baby, and it's probably more comfortable. And anyhow, again, this was in a week's worth of time. So if you think how fast products can be made, IDEO sort of shows you how fast they can be done. So definitely, time is a constraint, but it's also a way to innovate and get things done quickly, which you have to do when you're trying to be an entrepreneur or you're trying to start a new company. So just because we're in Spain and because I've been I've picked up and are able to notice some things that maybe a local may not see, only because I came from a different culture, a different environment. I wanted to point some of these things out. I did, just as well that any Spanish or anybody for that matter could go to my country in the United States and point out a lot of things that we're doing strangely or doing wrong, and potentially create new businesses around things that we do strangely. So again, this is not because for whatever reason America does things right. You go to Korea and they had iPhone 4 technology like 10 years ago with video conferencing and video calls on mobile phones. So again, I'm not trying to promote the United States or anything, but these are some of the things I've noticed as an American coming to Spain. So you will face cultural challenges here in Spain, and I've pointed out 4 of the key ones. Fear of failure is a huge one I've talked to many people about, and again, they see failed ventures or failed business ideas as a personal embarrassment. In the United States, for example, our culture is that if you fail, it's a learning experience. Now, granted, you don't want to have a CV full of failed startups, but at the same time, each one you learn something new about a marketplace, you learn something new about a channel, you learn something new about employees and management, you learn something new about technology. You're always learning something in a startup. I've learned so much just going through this whole Buddy Gripper experience and other small businesses along the way, that I feel that I have some things to offer to the table that my other engineering PhD colleagues won't have unless they've done similar things. So that's a challenge for Spain, is overcoming this fear of failure. You heard it in the IDEO video that they say fail fast so to succeed often. So right, fail often to succeed faster, I think was actually the way it was written. So that's very true, right? I mean, like, big deal. So your first prototype wasn't great, but you'll get feedback and you'll optimize, and you'll get to the next version, which will solve more problems and be more pleasing to your customer. I've found there's a fear of competition and a lack of trust, initial trust. Now, again, you always have to be careful with who you give trust, and competition can be fierce and they can put you out of business. But at the same time, if there's no competition, you don't progress as a society. You don't move forward. You don't you don't push the boundaries of the status quo, and that's very important. And also, if you're so afraid of the competition, you tend to be too secretive, and you don't collaborate, and then you don't get all these advantages that people get when they share and they communicate their problems with others who can actually help them. So in terms of being a default of what to do, I'd say, be trustworthy initially, right? Don't get burned significantly. Do your due diligence on people who you decide to give your trust. But at the same time, I think you win much more than you lose when you trust. So be careful of this fear of competition. I know if you're Spanish, you'll have to be stepping out of your comfort zone. But again, it's a challenge for you, and it will hinder you if you continue to proceed with too much fear. There's a risk aversion here. This culture really does not want to invest any money in an idea that could potentially fail. They're very scared about losing money. Obviously, this might come from the history of the country in terms of the Franco dictatorship or other other challenges they face in their economy. Again, I'm very new to this country. I'm a novice, but again, it's there. And you go into Madrid Emprende, and they want to see a business plan completely worked out. They want to see that you have customers already before they even consider giving you a loan. And that's unfortunately not how a lot of innovations take place, at least in Silicon Valley, the only place that I know that is argued to be one of the best innovation and entrepreneurial zones in the world. Again, I'm speaking from my experience there. I'm always open to feedback and corrections and your comments, so don't hesitate to ask questions. And then lastly, there's an entitlement feeling here, it seems, that as you graduate high school, which I know you have to work hard to do in order to get into the best universities, that's your last step really towards getting a good job in this country. The school systems here are designed to put students into companies to do certain things. They don't necessarily teach you how to think, and so So anyhow, these young high school graduates come into college and they just sit back and do nothing, or little to nothing, just so they can get by, and that's not really going to help you in the long term. And if you're expecting the government or someone else to give you a job on the way out of college, you might run into a harsh realization that people from India or people from Singapore or people from the United States will be competing with you for the same job from a different country using new forms of communication like Skype and the internet and Twitter, Facebook, all these different tools that people can use to collaborate online. So be careful with that entitlement. Instead, don't be anointed. Don't wait to be anointed. Wait, just go at it. Go for it. Right? Go make your own work. The environmental challenges I see here in Spain that really fight and thwart innovation. One is politics and hierarchy. I don't know if you remember Dave Kelly in the IDEO video talking about how he's like, give the senior vice president a big red ball. He's like, we don't care. We value people based on what ideas and things they do, what they contribute, what's their value, right? Not necessarily how long they've been there, what's their seniority, and what big desk on the corner office with the view they have. Again, that sort of stifles innovation because everybody below you looks to you for the answer, and no one person can come up with all the answers. In fact, they also mentioned another quote in that video where they say that it's like organized chaos and prototyping rapidly outpaces the lone inventor. Or the well-planned lone inventor. So again, you have to get rid of hierarchy. You have to value people for what they contribute. Yes, I agree that management's important, and yes, I agree that there needs to be structure in order to make things work. But at the same time, people should be seen as equals, especially if they contribute, or they should be valued based on their contributions to the organization and to the product, and most importantly to the customer. So the next thing I've noticed is the public educational system is sort of out of date. At least this is what I've also heard in other institutions here in Madrid. This, from my experience here, also they suffer a lot from politics and hierarchy, and they're not willing to bend rules in order to allow innovation to take place. Theory seems to trump practice, right? So many of our students in Hands-On Rapid Innovation were very eager just to do something that was a project-based course. There's very little investment in R&D here. Most of that comes from companies, and again, that doesn't really inspire new innovations like the internet back in the 60s, or carbon nanotubes, which again, we don't really know where those technologies will be used. But if you're constantly letting companies define your research vision, which is how it works here, you will constantly be defining new products for companies. And maybe they're on a bleeding edge of technology, but they're not going to be these foundational changes. They're not going to be the Nobel Peace Prize winning contributions to our world. But then again, the Spanish are very, very good with theory and very, very good with mathematical models, and they do make innovations along those lines. So that's not something to be dismissed. I think we just need to find a healthy equilibrium in terms of having some practical hands-on approaches, but also maintain that high level of theoretical knowledge and theoretical instruction. And then lastly, just this lack of entrepreneurial mindset makes everybody who's in this room specifically, or I guess this digital room, no, but anybody who's in our workshop today, sort of a freaky, a little weird, only because nobody's used to innovating. They're not used to seeing new ideas come to life, and they're not used to people saying that they're going to create their own business. They're much more used to people coming in and saying, oh yeah, I just got a great new job at Microsoft. I can't wait to continue doing this for the rest of my life. And again, it's just a different priority of what people want to do. Do they want to just live well and do their thing and have a nice family, which is very cool, or do you want to do all that and then also do something completely new? It's really it's a self-reflection. You have to decide what you think is most important for you. So those are the environmental challenges. Again, to summarize what we've sort of talked about, we have the rapid innovation cycle, which consists of 4 phases. which are experimental results, opportunity recognition, solution selection, market experimentation, and experimental results. The Spanish cultural challenges are fear of failure, fear of competition, and lack of trust, being risk averse, and this entitlement. And lastly, the Spanish environmental challenges are the politics/hierarchy, public educational systems, and their sort of antiquity. They need to be updated, and this lack of the entrepreneurial environment. So I will pass the mic off to our team lead for the Hands-on Rapid Innovation Executive Group, Mentorship Group, Mr. Igor Tasic, the CEO of Atlantico Partners.